My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. Many of us have experienced coincidence and synchronicity, but when a medical doctor, the former chairman of the psychiatry department of a major university medical school, recognizes these experiences, they become meaningful coincidences. Returning to Destination Unlimited this week, Dr. Bernard Beitman clarifies the relationship between synchronicity and serendipity and dissects the anatomy of coincidence. He is the first psychiatrist since Carl Jung to systematize the study of coincidences. He is the author of the groundbreaking book, Meaningful Coincidences: How and Why Synchronicity and Serendipity Happen. His website is coincider.com, and he joins me this week to share his work and new book, written from his personal synchronicity experience, Life-Changing Synchronicities, a doctor's journey of coincidence and serendipity. Please join me in welcoming back to Destination Unlimited, Dr. Bernard Beitman. Welcome back, Bernie.
Thank you very much, Victor the Voice.
The last time you joined us was in 2022 on the publication of your groundbreaking and best-selling book, Meaningful Coincidences: How and Why Synchronicity and Serendipity Happen. For our listeners meeting you for the first time, please share your early path and the events that led you to investigate this phenomenon.
Well, that book you just mentioned, Meaningful Coincidences, is a definitive statement about the whole field of synchronicity, attempting to take a step towards making it more scientific as well as more usable by people who read it. And I got to that because I've had a lot of meaningful coincidences in my life. And by meaningful coincidences, I include synchronicity and serendipity, among others. And I've had a lot of those. And the book delineates, retells the one I'm talking about now today with you, called the Life-Changing Synchronicities. It's a kind of biography or autobiography about my synchronicity experiences. And the most telling one was the first one, because it had the most impact on me. And it was involved my dog Snapper. And briefly, Snapper got lost. I mean, he wasn't home when I got home. And on my bike, my mother said, go to the police station, see if you could find him. They didn't know where he was. And I was crying so much, I took the wrong way home and ran into Snapper. And I needed that puppy really badly, because he was my only good friend, my best friend. And I just went home, and I found him by getting lost. And that's a key part of what I'm trying to tell people in the current book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, is getting lost, or generally speaking, doing something out of the ordinary, is a good way to increase meaningful coincidences in your life.
In addition to that experience with your dog, was there a synchronicity later on, as you were starting to get into your career, that became an aha moment for you?
Did you read the book?
Yes. The whole book is an aha moment, but was there a specific one?
Yeah. I'm more curious about what you have in mind.
There are several episodes that you discuss, and perhaps one of them is the fact that we can have the human GPS.
Yeah, and the human GPS, just like the GPS in the car, can get us to where we need to be without knowing how we got there. We don't know how the GPS works. I didn't know how to find Snapper, but I found him, and it wasn't just me finding Snapper. He found me. Dogs can find their masters and mistresses in strange ways, just like birds can find their nesting places and salmon can swim upstream after being way out in the ocean. Human beings have that same capacity to be able to get to where they need to be without necessarily consciously figuring out how to do it.
Absolutely. And I've had experiences where I've had knowledge come to me without any study or source of that knowledge and help me through situations.
Give us an example, Victor.
I was working on a piece of equipment, welding equipment, back in my days when I was in the welding industry. Had never looked at that piece of equipment before, never opened it up, did not have a schematic for it. But I just knew which component needed to be replaced.
Yes. And
I replaced it, and it worked.
and how do you think about that, Victor?
That knowledge was coming from somewhere.
Yeah. And we can talk about where that somewhere is. And everybody has their own opinion, and some opinions overlap. But what the important thing is that you needed the information, Victor. That's what it starts with.
Yes.
Need is a primary driver of creating meaningful coincidences. Because when you're needy, you're looking around. It's also when you're curious, it's a different form of looking around. It's still the same idea as you get more alert to your environment. And in this case, in your case with that piece of machinery, I'm going to guess that you had an ability, a kind of X-ray ability, to understand that machine in a way that you hadn't learned, but could imagine it, just like somebody who was working with firefighters can tell the firefighters, you're not finished yet. There's somebody on the third floor that's locked in. You've got to go there. It's a kind of clairvoyance. Yours is a kind of clairvoyance in looking into the machine without knowing you're doing it and being able to see what's missing. And when you have a need and you believe in yourself somewhat, you can fulfill it in the way you just did.
By the same token, that knowledge could be out there because there are others who were engineers who had done this work before, who had developed this work, and perhaps I was tapping into that current of information.
I'm glad you bring that up, because that's very, very important. Our minds are not isolated in our brains. Our minds are connected in what I call the psychosphere, or more specifically, the collective human mind. And that information that you were seeking is probably there too. However, you needed to have a receptor in your own mind to be able to recognize the schematic drawing that you ran across. So it still required some knowledge on your side of generally what the problem was, so that when you saw the answer, you can see where it fit. And the answer could easily come from going out into the psychosphere, or our collective human mind, and finding it. And that's the fun part of this, is how does the beam of your need find the answer out there in the collective human mind?
I'm going to give you another sharing. I don't think I shared this with you the last time we spoke. But in 1975, I was in the Air Force. I was stationed in Seoul, Korea. And one morning I woke up and I had a voice in my head saying, you need to call your mother. Now, I had communicated with her by letters every month. There was no indication that anything was wrong. But I had learned to listen to that voice whenever that voice would come through. So consequently, I called my mother 6,000 miles away back in New York. And if you recall, in those days, we had wired telephones with extensions. And my mother and my sister simultaneously picked up the phone. And I said, "Mom, is there anything wrong?" And my sister exclaimed, "Oh my God, how did he find out?" And it turned out that she was scheduled for major surgery the next day. And the voice told me to tell her that she would have a complete and quick recovery, that everything would be just fine. She needed to hear those words from me.
And
And she did have a complete recovery, and everything turned out to be just fine. And my sharing of that information was something that really reinforced it for her and made her feel much better.
and it made
And
you think about how it happened.
how did it happen? Where is that source? 6,000 miles away. How did I connect to her?
And how do you answer that, Victor?
And my answer through my experience is that we have this, well, if you want to look at quantum physics, they talk about quantum non-locality and quantum entanglement, where my mind was right next to her when she was going through these worries about her surgery, and I was able to pick up on that information and respond accordingly.
Well, thank you. I like asking people their explanations because I don't like arguing with people about how they explain these things. It's that's the way you see it and you believe it, and that's common. What you just said about quantum. The only problem with quantum is the idea of a famous quantum physicist who said, if you know quantum physics, you really don't understand it.
I don't claim to be a physicist, nor have a deep understanding of it, other than what I've learned about quantum non-locality and quantum entanglement. And what would you say my experience was about? Where would you say it stemmed from?
Well, in my book, you saw something similar, I hope, involving me and my father. It was I was choking uncontrollably, and then I found out the next day, at the same time, 3,000 miles away, my father was choking uncontrollably, bleeding into his own throat and dying, choking on his own blood. So I could pick up what was going on with him 3,000 miles away.
But again, from a source standpoint, if we don't look at the quantum explanation, what would you say?
Pick what you want. I think the quantum is another way of saying we don't know. Because that's what I was trying to say is that quantum physics is really complicated, and this entanglement thing is people are trying to make sense out of it, but the entanglement involves very, very tiny particles, electrons or photons, and in the laboratory they can make them entangled, and it's really a lot of work to make these things make two electrons or two photons entangled. It's a lot of work, a lot of different steps to go through, and then separate the two of them by as many miles as you can make them, and then reverse the spin on one of them, and the other one will also will do a reverse spin. Okay, that's a very small world, a micro world we're talking about. They've gotten, I think, last I heard, where they can do a boron molecule and pair them and get them entangled. But your body and your mother's body are a little bigger than a boron molecule.
Mm-hmm.
So the entanglement becomes a metaphor. The word entanglement is used in families where everybody's entangled. They're all in each other's business. It's a family therapy idea that their emotional lives get connected with each other. And that's more what I'm thinking about. I'd rather stay here on Earth and stay with the explanations that are in front of us. And what's in front of us is that we can be emotionally bonded to people. And the research shows, particularly by Ian Stevenson here at the University of Virginia, that people who are closely connected, it's usually like a parent and a child, but it can be good friends, experience these simultaneity events in different ways. You heard it, you heard the voice, and the different thing about your voice is that it said everything was going to be all right, which is not the usual variation. It's usually calling is something wrong with mom. That's the more standard one. And you pick it up because you emotionally entangle, if you will, with your mother. But I prefer connection, that you're deeply involved with each other. And that allows for communication across time and space in a way that we can call non-local, but not in the way that quantum physics means non-local. It's more like we're at a distance from each other and there's still a connection. And that connection, I say, takes place in our mental atmosphere, the psychosphere. And it's through the psychosphere that those connections are built. And then when communication is needed, those connections carry the information.
Tell us a little more about the psychosphere. What is the psychosphere?
Our mental atmosphere. It's a place in which telepathy and emotional information and visions and perhaps contact with non-living beings like our deceased parents, through which we can make communications that are not usually understood in conventional ways. And the psychosphere is to be related to several other around out there. It's another sphere or atmosphere, like our air atmosphere. It surrounds us and it's in us. There's also something more documented by science called the noosphere. And the noosphere is like a meaning sphere, and it's more like the left brain of each of us. It's more rational, less emotional. It's the internet. It's transportation systems, airplanes, trains, and trucks, other communication forms. It's where science continues to make discoveries that are conventionally understood in conventional scientific terms. And so the noosphere has been around for a while, since Teilhard de Chardin and one of his colleagues identified it, and now it's being rigorously examined. However, they don't do emotion in there. They don't do intuition in there. They don't do telepathy in the noosphere. The psychosphere is an earlier development than the noosphere, which is more developed by people inventing things. The psychosphere has been around before the noosphere, and it's ways in which indigenous people have communicated with each other without having to speak and without having to send other ways of signaling each other, but they can know when somebody who's went out hunting is coming back, or somebody who is lost, know when where that person is, and be able to find that person.
Is that similar to the way that your dog communicated with you? So the communication can exist between humans and non-humans and the animal kingdom and so on.
Why does that surprise you?
No, it doesn't. I'm not saying that. I'm just asking you to concur with that.
Yeah, not only the animal kingdom, but the plant continuum, the trees, our people, our entities, that I communicate with. And I also have had contact with people who have died, who have communicated to me information about a loved one of his that I knew very well.
You know, it's interesting. When my mother was transitioning in January of 2020, I was at her bedside. I was holding her hand, and she was unconscious. And I started seeing this vision of circles and rings, these circles and rings. And she passed. And a few weeks later, this poem came through me that I believe she inspired, and the poem is called Circles and Rings. And it says, the path of great beauty in so many things, from atoms to galaxies, circles and rings. Natural wisdom that dwells there within, from naught to 360, that magical spin. We circle each other in gravity's dance, as Gaia circles Sol, the solar romance, as Luna circles us in life-giving motion, drawing the tides and inner emotion. And the age of the oak is found in its rings, as in woman and man and all living things. And when the rings stop and life comes to an end, we'll all circle back and dance once again.
And yes, beautiful, Victor.
Thank you. And like I said, I believe she inspired that. That was the message that she sent me.
Well, that's beautiful. That's a very nice gift she gave you on the way out.
Absolutely. So how have your colleagues reacted to your pursuit of these phenomena?
Well, actually, I try to be able to turn this back differently. We're doing a kind of I'm the expert and you're the interviewer thing, which you're used to doing. But I want to make something clear to our audience, Victor. This book, this life-changing synchronicities, is intended to be like a synchronicity itself. And synchronicities themselves are often mirrors of our own minds. Our minds are mirrored in our environment. I'm thinking something, and it shows up unexpectedly. And you've had plenty of experiences like that. You're thinking you need to have a piece of machinery, and it shows up. Or the right person shows up when you're needing a job. Well, this book is intended to be a mirror of the mind of the reader, where the reader, I hope, will read these stories and then see themselves in it, to see their own experiences in it, just as I'm asking you about yours. I'm not so interested in talking about mine. I'm more interested in having people read what I've experienced and see what that triggers in their own experiences, so they can come to believe that some of these weird things are really something that happen, not just to them, but to many people. And I'm supposed to be an expert, and so I can say these are real phenomenon and they're useful. So when you read the stories in a book, let me know, or let yourself know, what does it remind you? What do they remind you of? Just as you've been reminded of your mother, and finding the needed parts of the machinery. My purpose, Victor, is to encourage people to examine meaningful coincidences in their own lives by reading some of mine and seeing how they're similar and different to their own.
My guest is Dr. Bernard Beitman. His book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, A Doctor's Journey of Coincidence and Serendipity. Bernie, please share with our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you and your work.
Well, thank you, Victor. If you put my name in any search engine, B as in boy, E as in Edward, I as in Idaho, T, M-A-N, Beitman, you'll find my podcast, you'll find my Psychology Today blog, and you'll find my 3 coincidence books, the last of which Victor just mentioned, Life-Changing Synchronicities.
And we'll be back with more of Bernie after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Dr. Bernard Beitman, his book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, A Doctor's Journey of Coincidence and Serendipity. Bernie, let's start looking at some of those terms. You had touched upon them a little bit earlier, but let's look at each of these expressions. You talk about synchronicity, serendipity, seriality, and simulpathy. How are these defined, and are they different or the same?
Synchronicity tends to be a psychological, spiritual, or interpersonal experience. And usually it has to do with something in the person's mind matching something in the person's environment or running parallel with something in the person's environment. For example, you, I needed to have information about how to write my next book. And my very good friend told me you got to write the introduction first, and then you got to write the last chapter second, so you know what the bookends are of your book. And I didn't know I needed that, but I had a need, kind of like your machine, and that was a synchronicity. And on the other hand, I gave him some vitamin E oil, and he never asked me for it. But when I gave it to him, it fit a need he had, which is that he needed something for some neuropathy in his foot. And the painkillers don't cure anything. And the vitamin E oil I gave him has made it a lot easier for him. That was for him a synchronicity. He had a need. I have a problem. I filled it. So his need, what he had in his mind, I filled with a little bottle of vitamin E oil. That's a synchronicity, and a synchronicity that draws us closer together. It's an interpersonal thing often, as well as a psychological and spiritual thing. Serendipity is often called a lucky accident. You kind of go the wrong way, and there it is. And that's what happened with Snapper. I went the wrong way. He went the right way. I took one wrong turn. Snapper took 4 right turns and ran into me. So he did more of the choosing than I did. So that was a primary serendipity. I also loved playing baseball in high school, and I was batting like 150 my sophomore year, which is not too good. You want to get at least 300. My junior year, a new coach came in, and he taught me how to drag bunt, which is a way of fooling the third baseman into like thinking I was just going to hit the ball, but at the last moment I put it down the third baseline, and I was pretty fast, so I could beat out these bunts. And I ended up winning the batting title that year with a batting average of 486. And it was all because of the serendipity of this new coach showing up at the right time for me to be able to really excel at baseball. Serendipity. Seriality is a sequence of events that are visual to everyone. It's not just a mental event matching an external event. It's like a friend of mine sees images of monkeys all the time. And she's kept a diary now has like 1,500 different monkey images, and they're all monkeying around with her because each time she has one of these monkey images, like on a toy or a commercial or a magazine or even somebody giving her a monkey toy, it comes at a time that is meaningful for her. And the fourth term is simulpathy. And simulpathy refers to what you picked up about your mother, knowing the pain of a loved one at a distance, and what I did with choking with my father.
Mm. You open your new book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, by suggesting that humanity may resolve our conflicts by recognizing synchronicities and our deeper connection with one another. How so?
What does that trigger in you, Victor? It's a good question, and I want to hear what you think about it, because again, this is not about me only. It's about me and the reader, and I'm so glad you picked that up. And you're pretty knowledgeable about all these things. What does that statement mean to you first?
To me, it means that when we see these things happening to not only ourselves, but to our brothers and sisters around the world, we're recognizing a common human experience. And by recognizing common human experience, compassion will come through. and the feeling of caring and the feeling of kindness and ultimately the feeling of love, which is really what we need in this world.
Beautiful. Probably a better answer than I could have given.
I don't think so, but
Well, the only word you didn't use that I would have, which I don't think is good as some of what you said, it's connection. Is that shows we are connected to other people in ways that we don't know that we are. And their connections take place again through this psychosphere. It's a web of interactions that is kind of like the internet, but it's more ethereal. And we don't know it. I mean, there was one story that I can't remember where I got it, but somebody was telling me about how he was really in trouble with the law, and he couldn't help stealing things. And if he stole something again, he was going to really get into trouble and be in jail for quite a while. So some guy in New Jersey who he didn't know went across to Manhattan where this guy was living and stealing, and stood in front of a store where the guy telling me the story was about to steal something, and the guy from New Jersey said, "Don't do it."
and he was there to say it to him.
Yeah, they were connected and didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy in New Jersey acted on it, and I can't emphasize anymore how important it is to act on the intuitions you get to see where they take you, because sometimes they can be like life-saving, as this was for the guy telling me the story.
Just from a personal perspective, when I've had these experiences in my life, especially the last 10 or 15 years, I've been presented with situations, and in these situations, I had three choices. I could either dismiss it out of hand, I could say, yes, but not right now. This is not the time for it or the place for it. Or I could say yes for the capital Y. And every time I use that capital Y yes, the next one would come, and the next one would come. Is this a common occurrence?
And it's a research question, Rich. It's a research question.
Okay.
You have to take all three elements and track people, which I think is going to be possible. But the basic idea is not no, maybe, or yes. It's knowing when to say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And how did you know when to say yes, Victor?
I felt it.
Tell us how you felt it.
I had a situation in 2020 where I had an employer who, I'm sorry, in 2018, I had an employer that I had been working for many years. Was not the nicest gentleman in the world. I'm not going to go into any other details other than that. And one day I said to myself, we had a meeting, I said, if he looks at me the wrong way, I'm out of here. And we had the meeting, and within 5 minutes, I said, excuse me, I have to go back to my desk and get something. I went back to my desk, and I wrote a letter of resignation. I submitted it, I left, and he sent out an email to other people in the industry saying that I had left the company, and he wished me well in my future endeavors. Within 2 hours, I had 3 phone calls, and each of those phone calls was an offer from someone in the same industry offering me a tremendous amount of increase in compensation as well as a much better position. And that's what my yes was. I wanted out, and I opened the new door.
Beautiful. That's part of this whole synchronicity thing. Is not only is it during times of upheaval, it's when you take a risk, which is another way of saying things are different. It's not the usual. You get out of your rut. You do something out of the ordinary, just like I got lost and found Snapper. Getting lost, taking a risk, going on vacation sometimes impulsively, or taking a left instead of a right, which sometimes we'll do it too, or just going up to somebody in the airport who you have a feeling about and introducing yourself. And as one guy tells it in his story with Synchronicity in the title, they were married for 19 years.
Mm. You share in your book a lot of your personal synchronicities, and then you share ways that readers can identify them. What are some of the common synchronicities, and how may your readers and our listeners recognize them?
I don't know. I don't. I don't know your listening audience. I don't know who listens to you.
Well, who reads you?
Um,
Who reads you?
I don't know who reads my books. I have a better idea because some of them tell me, but I don't get demographics from the from the publishing company. I'd like to, so I can't. I don't know. I mean, you know your audience maybe, so I don't know how they think about these things.
Let's
If they're
retract.
thinking,
Let's retract. Not my audience, not your readers. What are some of the common synchronicities that people experience?
we had to answer that question just to be able to say they exist. So, what you have to do in science is develop a valid and reliable scale. And there's a whole bunch of steps to go through to do it. And you end up with, like, we got 10 items. And then we ask 1,000 people to rank how frequently these items happen in their lives. And these were faculty and staff at the University of Missouri in Columbia. And why don't you guess what the most common one is, Victor? Or what the most common ones are?
I can think one of the most common one would probably be you're thinking about someone, the phone rings, and it's them calling you.
Yep. And now they don't do phones only; it can be texting.
Sure.
And occasionally they'll show up at your door. That'll happen too. And the key, often the key part of it is you haven't heard from them for a while. I mean, if you talk to your mother every other week or every other day, you're not surprised when she calls. It's someone who calls who you haven't heard from for a long time. One of my favorites was getting a call from the daughter of my high school girlfriend because she had heard Mel Robbins, radio person, our common. She got a lot of podcast viewers talk about me as a synchronicity expert. So she heard it, and then she contacted me to talk about her mother. Now, it's not like I was thinking about either one, the mother or the daughter, but I do think about her daughter, her mother, on and off, or every once in a while, just because for many reasons. So this was one of those very low probability thinking about somebody without and getting a phone in contact, and that just came out of nowhere. Except that her mother in high school had a strong impact on me and my future relationships with women.
Do synchronicities only happen when we're paying attention?
Now, one of the things about questions is there's often a hidden statement in a question. You know, I've done enough interviews with people, and let me just say, I agree with you.
So we have to pay attention.
We have to pay attention. If you're not paying attention, you don't see them. And you have to think that paying attention is going to be useful to you. And as I was saying, that you were paying a lot of attention when you wanted to find that piece in the machinery. You found it in a very nice, hard to define way. If you're looking for your dog to see if you can find him, and sometimes it's just scanning your environment and looking to see if there's something there. The guy in the airport was scanning his environment for somebody who might somehow resonate with him. Another person in the airport wanted to meet this famous person in her world. It was LaGuardia, and she had no way of contacting her. and then ended up seeing her in LaGuardia because she wanted to find her, and she had to be able to be looking around in order to be able to see her, and she got a job working for this woman.
Are there ways, here's a question, the answer within the question, are there ways that we may increase the frequency of coincidences?
Well, what are they? I'll add to your list. I'll add to your list.
I think the ways that we increase the frequency of coincidences is by being aware of them. And I think once we're aware of them, they're actually happening all the time.
It's fundamental. When you ask me about quantum entanglement, or I give you some kind of answer about the psychosphere, and it's a psychological thing first. It's a psychological explanation. You had to be listening to the voice talking to you. You had to pay attention to that voice. Otherwise, you wouldn't have heard it. If you were distracted, if you were depressed, if you were anxious, if you were like caught up in something else, you wouldn't have heard it. But your attention was free enough to be able to listen to that voice inside your head. So you have to have a free-floating attention that can be drawn like a butterfly to a flower or a bee to a flower to be able to land where you need to be able to land with your attention. It's fundamental. And here I'll mention something that you won't ask me about. It's called cognitive sovereignty. Cognitive sovereignty. In these days, our minds are flooded with all kinds of information, visual and word-based, just like what we're doing. We're doing one of many podcasts that are, and radio shows that are being put out there. And people turn on their TV sets, they go downtown, and there's all kinds of ads and people trying to sell them stuff. We're all kinds of cartoons and entertainment. I'm being distracted by watching basketball these days. And sometimes distractions are a good idea, but there is a fight for our attention more than there's ever been before in the history of humanity. A real war for people's attention. And the term cognitive sovereignty is a way of saying be mistress of your own mind. Don't let stuff in that does not benefit you.
Absolutely.
If you do that, then your attention gets freed up for synchronicity.
Taking ownership of our attention, cognitive sovereignty. My guest is Dr. Bernard Beitman. His book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, will be back with more after these words on the Om Times radio network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Dr. Bernard Beitman, his book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, A Doctor's Journey of Coincidence and Serendipity. Bernie, you share many wonderful personal experiences in your book. Tell us about the significance of the number 23.
People tend to have numbers that follow them around. And it's kind of surprising when you start noticing that happening. And I started noticing that most prominently when I was in college, when this classmate of mine, this teammate of mine, didn't want number 23. He wanted number 26. And that's when I was being given. So I had number 23. Well, the number 23 had meaning to me already. It was my house in Wilmington, Delaware was 32, so it was a reverse. And later in years, I read about 23 meaning change, as in 23 skidoo from the 1920s. And then I'd get a number for a new checking account when I was a psychiatric resident and saw the number 23 on this checking account. And probably the most surprising one was on October 23rd, 1965. This girlfriend of mine and I were hitchhiking from San Francisco to Los Angeles, and went on 101 and then went over to Route 1 along the California coast. And the first ride took us to the turn towards the Route 1, and the second one took us to Monterey, and the third one took us to another place halfway down, and the fourth one took us to the Hearst Castle, and the fifth one took us to their apartment in Los Angeles. And so there was 5 rides on October 23rd, and we walk into their apartment just to take a rest, and their apartment number is 23.
Mm.
The number 23 has been played around with in movies. There's 2 movies that have the number 23 as a central one. It's just one of those central idea. It's just one of those numbers that gets a lot of play. 666 gets a lot of play, and some people are attached to other numbers. It's just, they make you think. And the one thing that makes a lot of people think about numbers is I wake up at the same time and the clock is 222 in the morning. Or other people see 1111. That's the favorite on a digital clock. It's the favorite number. It's because it's the only one with 4 digits in it in a 12-hour clock. But if you do a 24-hour clock, you got 22222. So it depends on what kind of clock you're using. And people take that to have some kind of significance, the number ones. Well, what they serve as, I think, primarily as a way of catching people's attention that there's something else going on around them. When you get this seriality, this representation of the same number, that's trying to say there's more to your life, there's more to our reality than you have been told. And my whole thing is to be able to help with the transition from materialistic reality to one in which consciousness, which our minds are not only products of our brains. We need our brains to some degree, but they're also something else. And that something else is a way we connect with something greater. And that something greater that I'm writing about next is the collective human mind. That each of us, is a cell in the collective human organism. And each of us has a mind that's connected to the other minds on our planet. And synchronicity is a way of showing how these connections take place.
So this would allude to what you share in your book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, that really all synchronicities have purpose.
No, I am selling that idea. That's true. Otherwise, why would I be writing about it? But some of them are to be discarded because you don't know what their meaning is. And purpose and meaning are often connected. Sometimes you just get one and you say, what? What is this? I don't know what this is supposed to mean. Sometimes you find out later what the coincidence meant. You don't know it at the moment. You can't insist that you know it in the moment, but there's some you just say, without going into the details of it, there was a very complicated synchronicity happening with a soccer team in England that has to do with Fibonacci numbers, which I don't want to try to get into. But this team had somehow scored or won games in a Fibonacci sequence. So I asked a guy who's an expert in it, Fibonacci sequences, and he said, this is a random event. It's very low probability, but it's still a random event. And so you get to a place where the randomness says there's no inherent meaning in it, but you can make meaning out of it if you want to. But a lot of times there's some inherent meaning that you become wanting to search for. So yes, for the most part, or many times they're useful. But when we talk about that, Victor, sometimes there are terrible consequences of a synchronicity at first, and years later, it turns out to be one of the best things that happened. And it's something like the same pattern of your quitting your job. The boss gave you what you needed to leave, and that was a terrible thing to have to do, and it turned out to be much better than you had before.
Absolutely. And the resolution was rapid once I made that choice.
Sometimes it's not so rapid.
Interesting. Mine, for the most part, have been. Who gave you the moniker Dr. Coincidence?
A friend of mine from the University of Washington called me Dr. Coincidence. That's where I got it.
I like that. You don't like it?
Dr. Coincidence is an alter ego of mine. And Dr. Coincidence emerges when I smoke a certain weed. And Dr. Coincidence has been known to be my research assistant, because a lot of the stuff we're talking about happens when I am in an altered state of consciousness, because in altered states, reality looks different than it does in regular states. So I've seen a lot of stuff by being Dr. Coincidence in an altered state of consciousness. However, Dr. Coincidence has also gotten me in trouble because he's kind of like a trickster. He kind of just gets self-involved and likes to do things for the fun of it and doesn't pay attention to the potential consequences. So I've had to keep him under wraps more recently and just let him out every once in a while. There still is, and I probably want to be able to use it. I have a car, a 1968 Volvo, a 122S, that was my hippie car in San Francisco when I was a hippie on Haight Street. I still have it, and it works. And I want to get a little video of me riding around in my car as Dr. Coincidence, dressed up in one of my hippie outfits.
Nice. I like it. I like it. Tell us about the Coincidence Project.
The Coincidence Project was organized in 2022. It became an LLC in the state of, a nonprofit in the state of Virginia, 401(c). And our purpose is to put synchronicity into global consciousness. A lot of people are doing that. There's more and more people doing it. But that's been our function. And the vision is to illuminate the hidden currents that connect and unify us. Synchronicities illuminate those hidden currents that connect and unify us. And how do we do that? We had a thing called the Coincidence Cafe, which we've stopped because it really wasn't doing that much. And the way I'm trying to do it now, and I have some steps in doing it, is to develop an AI app, which could be called Bernard GPT. One of the board members doesn't like that. But it's Bernard GPT is a thing, and it's composed of my 3 books primarily, of the information from my 3 books. And you can ask it questions about your own synchronicities, and it can answer it. And that's what I want people to do, is to start using the AI to figure out their own coincidences and then be able to connect with people who have similar coincidence stories and connect them up if they're willing. There's a lot of privacy issues we have to be careful about. If they're open to connecting with people with different similar synchronicities and creating like online connections and discussions, that's what we're trying to do. It's a broader way than having a meeting once a month where we get 25 people together to talk about coincidences. This is more, this is faster and larger.
My guest, Dr. Bernard Beitman, his brand new book, Life-Changing Synchronicities, A Doctor's Journey of Coincidence and Serendipity. Bernie, one more time, please share with our listeners where they can get all of your books and find out more about you.
Please put my name in your search engine. B as in boy, Eitman, Beitman, first name Bernard, and you'll find my Psychology Today blog, my podcast, which has about 200 interviews on it of people talking about synchronicity, and you'll readily come across various places to get my 3 books. The last one, Life-Changing Synchronicities, is what I hope you do, and what I hope you'll read is not just me, but see a mirror of yourself in my stories.
Bernie, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this amazing work.
You're very welcome, Victor. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.